Welcome to Headline Hub Updates. Subscribe and press the bell icon for more updates. The headlines this morning were stark, their urgency impossible to ignore. Across every screen and front page, the world was waking up to a new crisis, one that threatened to reshape the balance of power in Asia. Beijing's message to Manila was blunt and unmistakable. Stay out of Taiwan or face severe consequences. The warning echoed not just in government halls, but in the anxious conversations of ordinary people. Satellite imagery soon confirmed the worst fears. An imposing flotilla of Chinese warships was on the move, skirting perilously close to Philippine waters, their intentions clear for all to see. This was no routine patrol. It was a calculated show of force, a message sent in steel, not words. The world watched as the ships cut through the waves, a silent but unmistakable threat. The Indo-Pacific, already a region fraught with tension, now bristled with even greater danger. Every movement was tracked, every signal analyzed. China's warning was a direct response to the Philippines' growing security ties with the United States, a partnership that had deepened in recent months through joint exercises and new defense agreements. The movement of Chinese destroyers and assault ships turned diplomatic pressure into military reality, making it clear that Beijing was willing to back its words with action. In Manila, top security officials rushed into emergency meetings, their faces tense as they weighed the risks and possible responses to the unfolding crisis. In Washington, the Pentagon reaffirmed its commitment to its treaty ally, promising support and solidarity in the face of mounting threats. The world watched as the Philippines found itself at the epicenter of a high-stakes standoff, its fate intertwined with the ambitions of rival superpowers. Chinese warships patrolled a red line, one Beijing warned Manila not to cross. The boundary was more than just a line on a map, it was a test of resolve. This was not an isolated incident, but the culmination of years of simmering disputes over territory and influence, each confrontation adding fuel to a fire that now threatened to burn out of control. The question now loomed larger than ever. What happens when a nation caught between superpowers is forced to choose a side? The stakes had never been higher. The Philippines stands at the center of a brewing storm, its next move watched by every capital in the Indo-Pacific. The choices made in Manila could shape the future of the entire region. The Philippines is more than just a neighbor to Taiwan. Its fate is deeply intertwined with the island's future. It stands as the island's southern gatekeeper, a crucial link between Southeast and Northeast Asia. The Taiwan Strait, the narrow body of water separating the two, is not just a stretch of sea. It's a vital maritime choke point. Every year, trillions of dollars in global trade and energy supplies pass through these waters, making it a lifeline for economies far beyond Asia. For China, gaining control over this strait is essential in any scenario involving Taiwan. It would allow Beijing to project power, cut off Taiwan from outside help, and secure its own shipping lanes. For the United States, denying China that control is just as critical. The U.S. sees the Taiwan Strait as a key corridor for its own military operations and a vital artery for its allies. If the Philippines grants the U.S. access to its northern bases, American forces could quickly deploy to block China's ambitions, potentially tipping the balance in any conflict. This makes the Philippine archipelago some of the most valuable strategic real estate on Earth, a linchpin in the security architecture of the entire region. The U.S. views its alliance with the Philippines as indispensable, a crucial link in the so-called First Island chain, a defensive line hemming in China's navy and limiting its reach into the Pacific. Without the Philippines, this chain breaks, giving China a freer hand to isolate Taiwan and expand its influence across the region. But this geography is a double-edged sword. It gives Manila leverage in negotiations with both superpowers, but also puts it squarely in Beijing's crosshairs, making it a potential front line in any future conflict. Neutrality is becoming impossible. The Philippines' land and sea are now the chessboard for a high-stakes superpower contest, where every move is watched and every decision carries risk. The stakes are real, the pressure is mounting, and the room for maneuver is shrinking fast. The Philippines stands at a crossroads, its choices shaping not just its own destiny, but the future of the entire region. Manila has pivoted back to its alliance with the United States, reversing years of hedging. Alarmed by China's aggression, the Philippines is revitalizing its mutual defense treaty and expanding U.S. access to key military sites, especially in the north near Taiwan. These aren't full U.S. bases but joint facilities for pre-positioning equipment and rotating troops. Joint military exercises have grown in scale and complexity, signaling a new level of cooperation. The Philippines is also modernizing its own military, acquiring new ships, jets, and missiles. Beijing sees these moves as a direct threat, interpreting dual-use sites as preparations for a Taiwan conflict. Manila's intent may be defense, but it's now firmly in the crosshairs of the US-China rivalry. China's warning isn't just about Taiwan, it's about the South China Sea too. Beijing claims nearly the entire sea, ignoring international rulings and using force to assert control. The Philippines' alliance with the US challenges China on both fronts, Taiwan and the South China Sea. US access to Philippine bases raises the stakes for Beijing, making any aggression riskier. China sees Manila's moves as part of a coordinated effort to contain its rise. For the Philippines, defending its waters and ensuring Taiwan's stability are inseparable. A Chinese takeover of Taiwan would put the PLA on Manila's doorstep and threaten vital sea lanes. China's warning is meant to force a choice. But for Manila, losing on either front would be disastrous. Beijing sees the Philippines' actions as deliberate provocations, not just defense. Allowing US forces near Taiwan is, to China, direct interference in its internal affairs. China views the growing US-Philippine alliance as part of a broader campaign to contain its rise. Every joint exercise and new base is seen as evidence of hostile encirclement. Manila's defiance undermines Beijing's strategy of regional dominance and sets a precedent others might follow. China's warning is a signal. Its core interests are at stake, and the price of defiance will be high. The Philippines may see its actions as defensive, but Beijing sees them as offensive moves in a larger game. Behind the geopolitics, there's a human crisis looming. Up to 200,000 Filipinos live and work in Taiwan, sending vital remittances home. If war erupts, they'll be trapped on the front line, their lives in grave danger. Evacuating them during conflict would be a logistical nightmare, possibly drawing Manila directly into the fighting. Any attempt to rescue citizens could be mistaken for military intervention, risking escalation. The safety of overseas workers is a tripwire, forcing Manila's hand in ways it can't control. China knows this vulnerability and targets its warnings accordingly. The fate of these Filipinos is a constant reminder. The stakes are measured in human lives. Manila must balance sovereignty with the duty to protect its people abroad. The crisis is personal, not just political. For the Philippines, war over Taiwan would be catastrophic. The northern islands could become battlegrounds. Refugees would flood south, overwhelming resources. Any strike on Philippine soil, especially US sites, would bring the war home. The military is outmatched. Even neutrality might not spare the country from attack. China could target Philippine bases to preempt US intervention. The economy would collapse. Trade halted, the peso plummeting, remittances disrupted, food shortages, blackouts, and mass unemployment would follow. The social fabric would tear, and political stability would be tested. The psychological toll would be immense. For Manila, the price of conflict is unbearable. Every step is taken with this in mind. A conflict over Taiwan would unleash an economic tsunami across Asia, and the Philippines would be among the first to feel its devastating impact. The shock would ripple through every sector, from bustling cities to quiet rural towns. The South China Sea and Taiwan Strait are vital arteries for a third of global trade. If a blockade were imposed, these lifelines would be severed instantly, halting the flow of goods and energy not just to the Philippines, but to much of the world. The Philippines, heavily dependent on sea-based imports, would face immediate paralysis. Fuel, food, and essential materials would vanish from shelves and stations, leaving millions scrambling for basic necessities. Blackouts would sweep across cities, factories would close their gates, and mass unemployment would follow as businesses grind to a halt. Food prices would skyrocket overnight. With rice imports halted, hunger and unrest would threaten communities, especially the most vulnerable. Financial markets would crash. the peso would plummet, and the savings of ordinary Filipinos would evaporate, erasing years of hard work in an instant. The government, starved of revenue from trade and taxes, would struggle to fund even the most basic public services. Schools, hospitals, and social support would be left in limbo. The dream of prosperity would be shattered for millions, setting the country back decades and forcing families to make impossible choices just to survive. Remittances from overseas workers, especially those in Taiwan, would dry up, cutting off a crucial lifeline for countless Filipino families. Small businesses would fold under the pressure, and daily survival would become a struggle for millions as jobs disappear and incomes dwindle. The shockwaves of this crisis would be felt in every Filipino home, changing lives and futures in ways that would be hard to imagine today. The Philippines stands at a historic crossroads, its choices shaping the Indo-Pacific's future. No longer a bystander, Manila is now the pivot of regional security. Every decision, on alliances, on resistance, on preparation, sends ripples across Asia. Neutrality is no longer an option. China demands accommodation, while US support brings its own risks. Manila must navigate between subjugation and confrontation, where every path is perilous. Its choices will influence the resolve of other Southeast Asian nations. Folding under pressure could trigger a regional shift toward China. Standing firm could galvanize resistance. The Philippines is now a bellwether for ASEAN and the region's security order. Its decisions today will shape its sovereignty and prosperity for generations. The world watches, hoping Manila's path leads to peace, not catastrophe.